And the final straw for me was I think it was the Wednesday night. It had been a week since the crash. They'd found the plane. They'd found all the bodies except for one, which has never been found, and that's the husband of the woman that I had sort of bonded with. And it was on the foreshore of Whyalla. It was dark. It's about 7 o'clock. We'd put up screens so that the coffins being brought in couldn't be seen. There was a big crowd. The media had been asked to stay away, keep their distance, and not film, and not with lights anyway, and not to approach anyone for interviews. It was a very, very sombre, grieving moment. You could just feel the community spirit. And I was exhausted, physically, mentally, emotionally. I was going home the next day. I didn't want to leave. I felt like I was really needed there for the job I was doing, and I hated the thought of leaving and not being able to continue to provide the service that I had been providing. And about 7:30, I think it was, my phone rang for the millionth time, and it was an ABC journalist. Very chirpy. "Hi Jen, how you going? Just want to get an update. How's it going out on the ferry there? Want to get on the wharf? Want to get an update for the 8 o'clock news." And he was just doing his job. And I knew him, I trusted him, I respected him, but I'd had enough. And I just said, "Fuck off," and hung up on him. I just couldn't deal with one more journalist asking me questions. And I sat down. I was near the curb of the car park. I was away from the crowd, and I sat down on the edge of the curb, and I burst into tears. I was in full police uniform, and I burst into tears. And I don't know to this day whether it was accidental or deliberate, but the first person that saw me was the police psychologist, a guy that I'd known for years, that knew me quite well, that had been there for a few days. I don't know if he'd been hovering, thinking, Jenny's about to crack, I better be there. I'm really not sure. He's never told me. But he walked up to me and he put his hand on my shoulder, and I stood up and he said, "Tell me exactly what you're feeling right this moment." And what I said to him was, "I am ashamed to call myself a journalist." That's how I felt at that time. I just felt the pressure on the families, the constant demands for information, for pictures, the intrusion on the grief. It was just all too much. I just had enough. And I did go home the next day, and I, again, coincidentally, drove home with the police psychologist. And I was very sad to leave. I felt like I should still be there, but I knew I needed some rest. And I was ordered to take a few days off, because I should have had days off in that week. And I went home, and I decided to go back into work the next day because I was several $100s out of pocket. I'd gone at such short notice that they said, "Look, just keep receipts for everything." So I'd paid for my hotel accommodation, meals for the ones that I did have, and I'd clocked up $600 or $700. And I thought, well, I want that money back, so I'm going to go into the office and get it back. And I had to fill out forms and do all sorts of things, and I said, no, too hard. And again, burst into tears, walked out of the office. My boss at the time came up to me and said, I think you should go and see the police psychologist. I said, "What for? I don't need anybody. I'm just tired and I'm upset." And he insisted on making an appointment for me the next day. But the next day I decided to go shopping, retail therapy, and I remember walking across the car park of a large suburban shopping centre, still thinking I didn't need the police psychologist. And I looked up and there was a small aeroplane flying across, very clear, I can picture it. It was Parabanks Shopping Centre, which I never go to. Clear blue sky, small light plane, just cruising along, and I looked up and I burst into tears. And I couldn't understand why.